Hello, everybody. I have been trying to understand which diet is better, vegan versus carnivore. I think that's the big question that most people have. It's even become so prevalent in society that usually you can tell if someone was Democrat or conservative based on what they ate. So, meaning if you leaned more eating a lot of meat, eating a lot of carnivorous foods, you were most likely a conservative. And if you were into like vegan food and leaned more that way, you were probably more likely a Democrat. But this video is not about politics. It's really about finding the truth of certain things that go on in the world, in particular about these diets. There are different topics I wish I could talk about in this video in regards to both diets, but there's one that I want to go over in this video, which is how does each diet affect negatively and positively both the animals and the planet, right? Which one is better? Which one saves more animals? Which one is healthier for the soil, for the planet? And so let's first start with the diet, obviously. And I know vegans are probably going to have their hands up in the air and not like this video and think that obviously the vegan diet saves the animals, but I just don't think that's true. Based on the studies I just read and based on how farming is used to grow vegetation and animals, I just don't think that's true. So please keep on watching the video because you may be swayed to see the carnivorous diet a bit differently if you are a vegan. So let's start with tofu. Tofu is a great staple amongst vegans, right? I used to love tofu. It is very tasty, but how they grow them is the question, which is through monocropping. It's a farming technique used to grow vegetation, the same kind of crop, over and over again in the same type of soil. And this is a step-by-step process really quickly. They prepare the land, they till the land, they make it cleared out. They plant the soybean seeds, which is going to be later turned into tofu. So these soybean seeds are planted. And third, the crops are sprayed with herbicides to kill off the insects, the little animals, critters running around. And I mean, yes, critters, because there are animals that eat these plants. So they must die off by using these poisonous chemicals on these plants. And 4 is harvesting. So after 3 to 5 months, these soybeans are harvested and then later turned into tofu. So what are the pros of doing monocropping, which is usually what you do to grow these vegetation that the vegans eat, is profitability. You know, you make a lot of money in a short amount of time because you're growing these crops over and over again, actually rather quickly. And 2, it's easier for the farmers. It's easier for them to till the land because they're not having to, change up the crops and diversify the soil. It's just at one place for a variety of moments throughout the year, and it's just very fast and efficient for these farmers to do, which is great. I don't blame them. And then the cons, this is where it matters in my opinion. There is soil depletion, right? So when you're growing crops over and over again in the same kind of soil, the soil just depletes because you're not feeding the soil with nutrition. It's always with herbicides, pesticides, all these chemical sprays. And it's the same kind of crop. So if the nutrition of the ground is not healthy, it's not going to feed the crop well. So the crop itself is not even that nutritious. And so there are loss of nutrients over time in the soil, and there's actually a lot of killings of these animals. That's the animal impact of doing monocropping of vegetation. Believe it or not, the herbicides kill the animals that are roaming around, the squirrels, the rabbits. And when you are using machinery, you are accidentally killing these animals. And I don't mean hundreds, I mean thousands per year. So it's not like, just growing vegetation saves animals. It doesn't. If you read the studies that I list below, take your time reading it. Monocropping does kill a lot of animals. Okay? So even plant-based foods aren't completely free of animal harm. Okay? So as I said, monocropping, this is what it does. The soil gets tired, it loses nutrients. The pests and diseases increase over time because they get resistant of the herbicides, pesticides, they get used to it. So They're able to roam around freely and eat the plants and destroy the plants ultimately. And the bacteria and fungi decrease in the land and the soil, and thus the crops get weaker. So now we are going to transition to regenerative farming. And this is what a lot of carnivore enthusiasts like me appreciate about regenerative farming, because in the long term, it actually, when I go over this with you, it actually helps the planet in the long run and the animals. And I'm going to explain why, okay? So the methods of doing the regenerative farming, this is how it goes. They rotate the crops. So it's not just one crop in one piece of land over time growing over and over again. It's multiple crops of different kinds of plants grown together, in different places. The soil is moved around, the crops are moved around, so there's more nutrients that are added to the soil, and thus the crops are healthier. So there's a diversity of plants, a diversity of soil, and the soil is more nutritious. And the animals actually help the nutrition of the soil by pooping, the cows pooping everywhere, and feeding the good bacteria and fungi of the soil. And in result, it's more nutritious because of this cow poop, being planted everywhere by these cows. And even cow grazing, animal grazing in general, because they're moving around, they're moving the soil. So the soil is being moved around. It's not staying stagnant in one place, which is very helpful for the soil and thus very helpful for the vegetation, okay? And so this is working with nature and not against it. And I'm a very big enthusiast for the regenerative farming because, like I said, the soil is healthier, it's more nutritious, and thus the vegetation is healthier. And yes, cows are being, I wouldn't say unfortunately, because, cow meat is very helpful for my body, and I believe God allows us to eat meat. And so they are being killed in order for us to be healthy. And I think the way that cows are grown on these farms, regenerative farming, they're actually living a very healthy and fun life. And then, yes, at a certain point, they will be, killed for us to eat. But it's not like we're putting them through torment. It's not like they're being tortured. They're living healthy and, in my opinion, fun lives until it's time for them to, yes, go to the slaughterhouse. And I think it's very important for carnivores to say those words because these cows are getting killed. But when you do the vegetarian, vegan way, you're not saving the planet, you're not saving the animals either, because you still are killing animals through the use of monocropping farming. So that's my take on it, guys. Like, when you do regenerative farming, you are, yes, killing the cows, but you're also not killing the animals that are killed in the fields because you're not doing monocropping. You're letting animals roam around, and you don't need to use that much herbicides or even herbicides at all because the insects are naturally going to stay away from these crops because you're intermingling, believe it or not, intermingling the crops helps to dissuade the insects to come and eat up these plants, the vegetation. So you're improving the soil health, you're restoring the ecosystems, and you're reducing long-term environmental damages of the planet. And I think that's a lot of pluses, in my opinion, for the regenerative farming versus the monocropping. And the truth is, it's not as simple as, you eat meat and it's bad, and you eat plants and it's good. It's all the accumulation of all this information that you can decide which one's better. But if you look at the studies along with your opinion, you'll know that regenerative farming is actually way better for the planet, way better for the animals in the scheme of things, not just on one little thing, but in the scheme of things, it's better for the animals and better for humans because we eat these crops, right? So if we actually care about the planet and the animals, we need to look deeper than just what's on our plates, but really where the vegetation, the vegetables, the food, the animals that we eat come from, right? So who's the winner here? It's obvious, at least to you, of what I think is that the regenerative farming does have a huge benefit on the planet and on the animals and even humans themselves. Okay, if you have any comments or even want to argue with me about this or have, an opposition to this, by all means, put your comments down below. I just suggest to be respectful because that's how I like to go about things is, I don't mind if people have opinions or want to oppose me, but just be respectful and I will respond. Okay, have a great day. Bye.